I've spent my career analyzing the numbers that most people overlook. From my time as an accountant to managing the logistics of my own business, I've learned one universal truth. The rules of the game are never static. Usually, the tax code is a slow, boring grind that moves at the speed of a turtle. But right now, in April 2026, something has changed that is forcing me to rethink the entire architecture of how I manage and protect money. You see, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act isn't just another piece of legislation. It's a complete overhaul of how the IRS interacts with your bank account. And it's the single largest shift in the tax policy that we've seen in a generation. And from what I'm seeing in the data, most people are completely unprepared for it. Now, everyone's gonna probably file their taxes this month exactly the same way they did just the last year. And they're gonna open their software, import their data, and hit submit. I'm not gonna lie, that's gonna be your massive mistake. If you don't adjust for these new rules we're gonna talk about, you're essentially gonna be leaving a tip for the government that you don't owe. Now, in this video, I'm revealing the 10 specific pillars of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act that I'm going to be auditing right now to ensure that I'm not overpaying anything. And if you want to protect your wealth and maximize your 2026 refund, you need to understand these shifts before you even hit that file button. Now, let's talk about this new standard deduction floor. Believe it or not, the standard deduction isn't a flat number anymore. And for decades, it was a simple fixed amount. And now you either took the standard or you itemized everything. Pretty simple. But under the new 2026 rules, the government has introduced what I call the efficiency floor. And for every dollar you earn over the median income, this new act allows for a dynamic adjustment. So that means if you spend that money on a qualified life improvements, things like home energy upgrades, specialized education, or even the certain health tech subscriptions, your floor now rises. Now, in the past, these were credits or deductions that you had to fight for tooth and nail. Now they're baked into the floor itself. So if your floor rises from $15,000 to $22,000 because of your 2025 efficiency upgrades, that's $7,000 of income that the IRS can simply ignore. Now let's put this into perspective and do a quick case study. Imagine investor A, he earns $80,000 and they take the 2025 standard deduction of roughly $15,000. So they end up paying taxes on $65,000. But if you take a look at our second model, investor B, under this same act, they also earn $80,000, but they spent $5,000 on a new AI integrated HVAC system, $2,000 on a professional certification course. So that means under this new efficiency floor rules, their standard deduction is automatically adjusted to $22,000. And now they only have to pay taxes on their $58,000 salary. Now that's a $7,000 difference in taxable income just without having to track every single receipt for an itemized return. But the thing you're gonna have to look out for is that most tax software still haven't fully updated their algorithms to catch the sliding scale. So they're still using the old fixed numbers from 2025 because they haven't integrated the One Big Beautiful Bill API just yet. So before you hit the next button and the next button, then finally submit, you are defaulting to the old lower floor. So in order to correct this, log into your 2025 energy utility portal and pull your efficiency score. And what you're going to want to do is take that score, match it against the One Big Beautiful Bill, which is the table 1-A, and you're going to want to manually override the standard deduction field if your tax software hasn't prompted you yet. Now, the second part of this bill we'll talk about is the overtime tax-free loophole. Now, this one is a big game changer for everybody with a job. For the first time in history, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has made a portion of overtime pay completely tax exempt. But there's a catch to this. The IRS isn't just going to give it to you automatically. You have to ensure your employer has coded your W-2 specifically under the section 402-A variant. So let's work out how this all looks. I want you to imagine for a minute that you worked 50 hours a week all year round. Under the old system, those extra 10 hours were taxed at your highest marginal rate. And it felt like you were being punished for working harder, right? You get that time and a half pay, but the government would take such a large chunk of that it barely felt worth doing the overtime. And I specifically remember talking to one of my older clients who worked construction, and he told me, dude, I stopped working right at 40 hours a week because the IRS is taking 40% of everything I earn just after that. It's not even worth my time. And he was right. But the One Big Beautiful Bill Act changed that math now. So how does this section 402-A work? Well, the first 200 hours of overtime per year are now tax neutral. This means they show up in your bank account at the full time and a half rate, but they're excluded from your gross income calculations. But there can still be an error here because many HR departments are still using the legacy payroll software and it hasn't been patched for 2026. So if your W-2 shows your overtime in box 1 instead of having a code V or code 402 in box 12, then you're being overtaxed. And that's something you're gonna have to want to settle with your HR. So you'll have to maybe log into your portal, request a detailed earnings statement for 2025, and you're gonna want to compare the total overtime paid to your W-2 box 1. If they match perfectly, your employer has made a grave mistake and you got to request a W-2-C, which is the corrected W-2 before the April 15th deadline. Now, the third thing we'll talk about is I'm changing how I claim my technology expenses this year. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act introduced this new digital productivity credit because AI is now a requirement for staying competitive in the 2026 economy. So the government is finally allowing a direct credit, not just a deduction, but a credit for AI software and second brand tools. And now this is often overlooked. The big tech companies like Nvidia and Microsoft are betting millions on AI, and the government is now subsidizing the users to keep this economy moving. Now, I said this is a credit and not a deduction, but it is important to understand what the difference is. A deduction reduces your taxable income, but a credit reduces your tax bill dollar for dollar. So if you owe $5,000 and you have a $1,500 credit, now you owe only $3,500. And this is much more significantly powerful than a deduction. Now you're probably thinking also under this bill, what qualifies? Well, under Section 12-C of the One Big Beautiful Bill Act, productivity amplification tools qualify. And this includes monthly subscriptions to LLMs such as ChatGPT Plus, Claude Pro, Gemini Advanced, and anything else you use that has a specialized AI accounting software, hardware upgrades specifically for local model executions. And for this, I mean like Mac Studio or high-end PC builds. But there is a proof of use requirement. So you can't just buy a new gaming laptop and call it an AI credit. You got to demonstrate that the tool is used for professional or educational advancement. Now I'm going to want you to export your 2025 credit card statements and search for keywords like OpenAI or Anthropic or Adobe. And what you're going to want to do is aggregate these costs, fill out a form 8832-T, which is the productivity credit form, and attach a simple one-paragraph usage statement explaining how these tools improve your human capital. Now, the fourth thing we'll talk about is the 1099-K microbusiness safe harbor. Now, we've heard for years about the IRS coming after Venmo and PayPal users. The rumors were that if you sold an old couch for $600, the IRS wanted their cut. Well, now the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has finally addressed this with the microbusiness safe harbor. In 2026, the threshold for 1099-K reporting has been stabilized, but the safe harbor rules for this bill are where the real money is saved. Now, this is going to be a specific carrot the government is dangling right in front of you to help people pay off high interest credit card debt. If you made money selling items online or doing gig work and you use that money to pay off a credit card with an APR over 18%, then the One Big Beautiful Act allows you to exclude that income from your taxable total, which is up to $5,000. And you might be thinking, this is too generous of the government to be doing this. Why are they giving this to us? Well, they finally realized that high interest debt is a drag on our entire economy. So by allowing you to earn tax-free money, and as long as it goes directly to your debt, they're essentially co-signing your financial freedom, which then stimulates the economy. But there's a caveat to this. If you receive the money from the sale into your checking account and it just sits there for 3 months before you even pay the credit card, then you lose the safe harbor status. That link must be contemporaneous, meaning the payment to the debt should happen within the same billing cycle as the income. So to prove consistency here, you're going to want to track every 1099-K form you receive this month and match those income dates against your credit card payment dates. Use the debt link worksheet provided in the One Big Beautiful Act guidelines to prove this flow of funds. The fifth thing we'll talk about here is the time wealth real estate shift. For the real estate investors watching, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has changed the depreciation schedule for the first time in decades. They've now introduced the accelerated life cycle depreciation for properties that meet certain density requirements. And I've always said that real estate is the best way to build time wealth, but the government now wants to incentivize efficient housing. Now, for years we've been told that you had to depreciate residential property over 27 and a half years. It was a slow drip of tax savings, but if your rental property has an accessory dwelling unit or is part of a multifamily microgrid, you can now depreciate 50% of the asset value in just the first 5 years. So that means if you bought a duplex for $500,000, in the old way of reporting this, you get roughly $18,000 in depreciation just every year. In the new One Big Beautiful Act, you get $50,000 a year for the first 5 years. And this can effectively wipe out all your rental income tax for the first half decade of ownership. It allows you to reinvest that cash flow into more properties and create this massive compounding effect. But in order to qualify for this time wealth bonus, your property has to have a utilization ratio of 1.5 or higher. And this sounds like it's complicated, but it simply means you need more than one habitable unit per lot. Now, the sixth thing we'll talk about is the metabolic budgeting deduction. This is probably one of the strangest ones to go over, but it's the most effective parts of this new bill. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act has introduced a health to wealth link. If you can somehow prove you're spending money on preventative healthcare, the government now views this as an economic preservation expense. Because you know what they say, preventative care is the best medicine you can ever get. Now think about it. A healthy worker is a productive worker. The government would rather give you $500 tax credit for a gym membership now than pay for your medical bills through subsidized programs later. Now, what qualifies? Well, we're talking about wearable tech such as an Apple Watch, Oura Ring, a Whoop bracelet, or if it includes metabolic monitoring. This also includes gym memberships, as well as purchasing of home gym equipment under the Wellness at Home clause. And of course, we're talking about continuous glucose monitors used for biometric optimization. Now, I track my fitness the same way I track my finances, and that's with 100% precision. I know my HRV, my resting heart rate, and my daily caloric burn. And now for the first time, those two worlds are about to merge right on my tax return. But with most of these, you can't just claim general wellness without any of the receipts or the data. You gotta be able to export a report showing consistent engagement. And this is where we get into the tricky part. If you have a gym membership but only went 3 times in 2025, the AI auditor that takes a look at this will flag that as a deduction that is inactive. Now, to claim some of this stuff like your wearable tech, sync your wearable tech to a tax-ready health app and export your 2025 engagement report. Now you can claim the metabolic credit on line 14 of your 1040. Now, the seventh thing we'll talk about is this child legacy account pilot. The One Big Beautiful Act has also launched a pilot program for what they call legacy accounts. So now the government is offering $1,000 one-time contribution to any child born or registered in 2026, provided that money is put into a Section 529-B account. And that B stands for business. So this isn't just for college. This money can be used to start a business when the child turns 18. And it's the government's attempt to see the next generation of entrepreneurs. So let's take a look at the math of how this $1,000 compounds over those years. If you put the $1,000 into a 529-B account today and it grows at a conservative 8%, it will be worth over $4,000 by the time the child is 18. But more importantly, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act allows parents to match that contribution tax-free. And there's also the grandparent loophole. Under the 2026 rules, grandparents can contribute up to $10,000 to a 529-B without it counting against their lifetime gift exclusion. And now this is a massive way to move generational wealth without the IRS taking a cut. To get started on this, you're going to want to check the legacy pilot registration on the IRS portal, open a 529-B account with a broker like Vanguard or Fidelity, and just automate $50 a month contribution to trigger the government matched bonus. The eighth thing we'll talk about is this invisible inflation hedge. We all know that inflation has been a silent killer for the last few years. The One Big Beautiful Bill Act acknowledges this by creating a new class of treasury bonds that are 100% tax-free at the federal level if it's used for infrastructure reinvestment. So why these? In a normal market, if a bond pays 5%, you might lose 1.5% to taxes. And your real yield is only 3.5%. But with these One Big Beautiful Bill bonds, your yield is pegged to the CPI plus 2%, and you pay absolutely zero tax. And this is a great defensive logic here, because in a world where cash is losing value almost every single day, this is the ultimate safe harbor because it's not flashy, it's not going to make you a millionaire overnight, but it's a surefire surefire way to make sure your purchasing power never goes backward. But the thing is, with this part of the bill, you're limited to $25,000 per year in one big beautiful bill bonds. And these aren't really meant for billionaires, it's meant for the middle class saver who wants to protect their emergency funds. If you want to get started on these bonds, go to the treasurydirect.gov, look for the One Big Beautiful series, and move your static cash into these bonds. Now, the ninth thing we'll talk about is the exit tax for small businesses. Now, this is a warning. If you're planning on selling a business in 2026, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act has introduced a vulture clause. Now, this is one part of the bill I'm really not much of a fan of. What this part of the bill says is if you sell your business to a non-strategic institutional buyer, your capital gains tax could jump as high as 40%. And the government is trying to penalize the flipping of American businesses. But the only way around this 40% penalization, if you sell your business to your employees or a local successor, the tax on that sale drops to a flat 10%. Now, this is something that I'm really passionate about and I care for because I've sold businesses before, and that tax strategy was always the hardest part because most business owners spend 20 years building a legacy, or they put blood, sweat, and tears for many years. And you don't want half of it to disappear in a single afternoon. And the thing is, when you're ready to sell or retire your business, you're gonna want the best price and sell it for the highest price so you can use that money to retire and finally relax. Now, this part really sucks because you can't maximize your profits. And it's almost like it's a discouragement to capitalism. And I get what they're trying to do. They're trying to encourage entrepreneurship for the next generation to set up the next person to become a business owner. But it really sucks when you're the one selling it because now you can't profit as much from the sale. So take this part as you may for this part of the bill. Obviously, I'm not a fan of it. Probably a bunch of business owners are really not a fan of this. But moving on to the 10th and the last part of the bill we'll talk about is the AI, and it's the automated audit defense. Now, the IRS has spent $20 billion of the One Big Beautiful Bill budget on autonomous auditing. So they're no longer using humans to check on your math. They're using algorithms that can scan your bank accounts and your credit card statements and even your social media in real time. Now, this might sound like it's out of a sci-fi movie, but it might be an opportunity for you. If you use open banking and connect your accounts to the IRS's new transparency portal, they give you an accountability credit of $250. Now, also take this one with a grain of salt because if the AI knows exactly where your money is coming from, it's not going to flag you for a manual audit. It's like having a pre-check pass at the airport. So if you're still using manual spreadsheets or, God forbid, paper receipts in a shoebox, 2026 is the year that AI is going to catch up with you. And now the probability of audit for non-digital filers has increased by 400% this year. And this might sound kind of sketchy because the less the government knows about me, the better, right? I know a lot of us feel that way, but now that everything is connected straight to the IRS, also take this last clause with a grain of salt because I'm not a fan of this part either. I'm obviously not going to do this. I'm going to kick it to the old ways where I stick it to on paper, I audit everything myself, and then I just input the data on the software. Now look, I've seen way too many people wait until April 14th to realize they've missed out on these tens of thousands of dollars. They treat taxes like a chore when they should be treating it such as a strategic chess game. And I've been around the block enough times to know that the rules are constantly changing. The dot-com era had its rules, the post-2008 era had its own, and now we're in this One Big Beautiful Bill era. But my strategy for 2026 stays simple. I'm putting most of my money into the market cap weighted S&P 500, and I'm still gonna be betting on the big winners, but I'm just learning how to play the game better and auditing my tax strategy with the same intensity that a pro athlete audits their game film. Now, the One Big Beautiful Bill Act is a massive shift in power, and you can either be a victim of the automated audit or you can be a beneficiary of the efficiency floor. Because the truth is, nobody, not even the government or your boss or your bank, is even gonna care about your money as much as you do. So you can either follow the crowd and pay these old prices, or you can prepare for this new system. If you wanna learn more about these tricks with finance in 2026 and how to keep up with today's economy, hit that subscribe button and wait to see my next video. Until then, I'll see you guys on the next one.